in Maryland. Interestingly enough, not too many years ago, Maryland ranked number 25 in terms of business friendliness as a state. Now we're down to number 49. And, state companies are fleeing the state because they're being persecuted. And interestingly enough, my wife and I recently purchased a home in Florida. And we have found so many people from Baltimore down there. It is unbelievable. We can have a whole community of just people from Maryland who are trying to flee being, completely taxed to death. And interestingly enough, the taxes are so high in Maryland that you can buy a home in Florida and pay for it with the taxes that you save. So why give the money to the government when you can put it in your own portfolio and have a nice home in Florida to boot? So, this is the reason that we need to bring some reasoning back to the state. The only reason that the state is doing well is because we have so many federal employees there. And that obviously is because of the tremendous expansion and growth of the federal government. These are all things we need to do something about. And I'm confident that Charles Lawler is the right person to do that. He has the right temperament and disposition. And people have said that if you're not a flaming Democrat, that you probably are not going to be able to win in a state like Maryland. But, he has a winning personality, the right kind of family structure that I think really a lot of people could identify with. And interestingly enough, and this is something that sometimes people don't understand, they think that a lot of people will not vote for him if he's not a Democrat, who are black, and that's not true. Because I find every day when I go to the hospital and I walk around, a zillion black people come up to me and say, "If you run for anything, I'm voting for you." and they know that I'm not a liberal Democrat. So. Of course, that's one of the things that does terrify some of the left wing, because for them, it's all about voter base. It's all about keeping certain segments under control and feeling that they're beholden to you so that you can cultivate their votes. And obviously, that's no way to run a state. That's no way to run a country. At some point, we have to get back to the point where we start doing things that make sense rather than things that are politically expedient. That, unfortunately, is where we are today. I'm delighted that so many of you have come out. I saw Herman Cain when I first came in. I think he has to go to another affair. But just delighted to see the kinds of people who have turned out for this. I really think, despite them saying that Maryland is a solidly Democratic state, I do think there are some rational people there. And and no, really, I mean, people who actually can make decisions based on what makes sense versus what party a person belongs to. There was a big push, last year to get me to run for the Senate in Maryland. And, I continue to say I'm not interested in going into politics. But it is kind of funny to think about it. Can you imagine that race? Ben Carson versus Ben Cardin? And you know how low information most voters are. interested in helping to cultivate an atmosphere where people can actually talk about ideals. And they can talk about them openly, without fear of reprisal. And unfortunately, there is a veil of political correctness that is in the process of destroying the nation we live in. And everywhere that we go, I mean everywhere, there are a ton of people who come up to me and say, please, don't shut up. Please keep talking about these things. But what I want to do is I want to create an atmosphere where they feel that they can talk about these things, where they're unafraid. As you know, I withdrew as a speaker from the Johns Hopkins Medical School commencement. But I got a letter from a bunch of students called Anonymous Frightened Students. And they obviously did not want me to withdraw, but they were afraid to make their identities known because they thought that might impact on their careers, and they were probably correct. And the fact that we now live in that kind of a society, that should be cause for enormous alarm for all of us. And it's not about something simple. This is about the fundamental principles that created the nation that we're living in. And I see absolutely no reason that we can't add Maryland to the group of governors that think rationally and with common sense about how to solve problems, and do it not for one group specifically, but for all the people. We never want to get into, tit for tat, into revenge, getting back at somebody for what they did. Just chalk it up to stupidity and let it go. And take the opportunities that God provides to do the kind of things, I think, that will allow all of us to rise, recognizing that this nation was founded on Judeo-Christian values. And if we allow those things to be suppressed because we're afraid, then we will get what we deserve. Also, we must make sure that people are well informed and educated. Our founding fathers said, unless we have that, the nature of our nation will change. And you can see it is changing. Because people are so easily led by the nose that they don't even pay attention to what's happening. They just listen to the flowery words that are spoken. And unless we begin to talk about this, and it's one of the reasons that I feel compelled to continue to talk about it, and I am not going away. There are those. If you've ever read Rules for Radicals by Walensky, you know that rule number 1 says, first of all, you try to make yourself seem bigger than you are. And if you can co-opt the media, and you can make everybody else feel like they're in the minority, and that helps to shut them up. And then rule number 5, if somebody is sort of like getting out of line, ridicule and tell a lie and continue to repeat that lie. And then rule number 13, you try to isolate them, and that most people can only withstand that for a few weeks before they disappear. It's an organization that has to be more sustained. Well, see, they thought that a few weeks and I would go away. But see, what they don't realize is that I am a big organization because God is there. God before you, who can be against you? That's what you have to keep in mind. And Charles, I hope you will keep that in mind, because there will be a lot of slings and arrows coming your way. I can guarantee you that in the state of Maryland, just because you don't have the right letter on your sweater. Okay? But don't let it disturb you. Just keep talking about logical, rational things. And there'll be others in this room and outside of this room who will help add to that argument. And I see absolutely no reason that we cannot win the House in Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ben Carson, Armstrong Williams, Herman Payne. I appreciate everybody here being here today, and we're going to close this out with a little bit of fun with My Girl, like I promised. I'm not saying. Lord, I'm not saying.